What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So I just figured I'd shoot a video about my most used radios of 2025. I did this last year as well. Some of these will be the same, some will be different. But in front of you are probably my two most used radios. So you got my FTDX10 and my FTX1, and they live in the shack here in this configuration unless we're going out in the field with one of these radios. They live kind of like this here in the shack. Sometimes I have the amp attached to this. I don't right now. But these guys get used all the time here in the shack. The FTDX10, for obvious reasons, ridiculous receiver, fantastic filtering. It's a great radio. I have no complaints with it. I've had it for a couple of years and it's been fantastic. The only complaint I would have is the ergonomics are a little bit funky around the knobs, which people are aware of. And it doesn't really bother me because I don't have very big hands, right? If you got big paws, getting to this band button, for instance, might be kind of tricky. But, you know, all in all, I've used this radio so much, I'm used to it now. And I've used a lot of HF base station radios, and for the price and the performance, it's very hard to beat this radio. And on top of it, we've got our FTX1. That usually lives here in the shack as my UHF VHF radio, unless I'm going out into the field and I'm taking it with me, then it'll, you know, see double duty as HF and UHF VHF. Right now I just have it in field configuration. I don't have the battery on it, I just have it plugged into 12 volts. But that's attached to a J-pole out the window. And that is my shack UHF VHF radio. Sometimes I'll have the amp attached to it. I don't right now. I don't need the amp to get into the local repeaters. 10 watts is more than enough. In fact, I can get into the local repeaters with, you know, half a watt. So that sees a lot of use here in the shack, and it also sees a ton of use out in the field, as you've seen in my videos. And keep in mind, I don't video every activation I do, but this radio got a ton of use this year for obvious reasons. It was new. I was trying to put it through its paces and kind of form an opinion on it. And I've come to the conclusions that I really like the radio. It does have some flaws, but for how I operate and the things I value in a radio, it tends to do all of those things well. If you don't like it, that's totally fine. Same thing with the DX10. If you don't like the DX10, that's totally fine. Just for me, these two radios kind of do all of the things that I want them to do. So they see the most use out of any radios I own. They both see field use, although the DX10 obviously doesn't as much because it's big. I do take it out occasionally. The FTX1 is out in the field all the time, both in field form and in optical form. Now, let me turn the camera here towards my desk. We'll grab the next radio. So I've got 4 HF radios, the DX10, the FTX1. Next one should be no surprise, and that is my KX2. Now, I own 2 Elecraft KX2s. There are a lot of reasons I love this radio. It is an all-in-one package, right? It's a battery, speaker, tuner, microphone, everything all in one. I can attach the key directly to the front of it and just have a nice little compact package. The receiver is decent. The audio is decent. It's not great, but it's decent. The filtering is good. It's 80 through 10, so it'll do all the HF bands that I want. You know, I can control key speed in real time with one knob, which is for me a fantastic option. I like the fact that if I want to do single sideband, I can switch over to single sideband and I can use the transmit button and the little microphone hole here on the side of the radio. I don't need to carry a spare, like an external microphone with me. This radio kind of does everything. Is it the best radio ever made? No. I've talked about its flaws before. You know, the build quality is meh, the audio's okay, but it's nothing to write home about. The receiver's decent, but it certainly isn't up to like the KX3 standards, for instance, or like, you know, these Yaesus. But because it is everything all in one little package, it's so convenient and it does all the things I need it to do. It sees the most use of any HF field radio I own. It sees more time even than that FTX1. The FTX1 saw a lot of use this year, but I think the KX2s saw more. And keep in mind, like I said, I don't record every activation. So, you know, you might have seen the FTX1 a lot on camera because it was new and I was putting it through its paces. But I think out of all my radios, I grab my KX2s the most. And it doesn't matter which one it is. I've got this one. This is the one I got from Aaron Bowman. And I've got the other one that's got the side rails and the heat sink on it. It could be either one of those radios. They're interchangeable as far as I'm concerned. You know, and I normally take it out in a little kit. You guys have seen the kit on the channel. right? This little KX2 kit that's got, you know, the binding post and the key and the antennas and all that stuff in the kit. It makes it very convenient. You know, it's light, it's small, it does all of the things. The tuner in it is ridiculous. So at the end of the day, this is probably my go-to field QRP radio, just because it does everything so well. It does have flaws. Like I said, build quality is not great. One thing you got to watch is on these, the encoders are not super stout. You don't want to put a big heavy encoder knob on these things. These encoders are not super robust. It was kind of a trade-off. They went with a lighter duty encoder to save weight. I personally think that's a mistake, but like the KX3 has a much better encoder in it. But these you got to be careful with. Don't put a big heavy knob on these. These encoders will go bad. In fact, my other radio, it will do some wonky stuff on this encoder unless you push down on it. But that radio is from the original batch of KX2s. This one's only, I don't know, 3-4 years old. That other one isn't one of the original ones from the original batch. And the encoder still works. You just, if you don't push down on it and you turn it fast, it'll go the wrong direction sometimes. But it works, so I don't really worry about it. But like I said, because it does everything well and it does everything that I need a radio to do, the KX2 sees a pile of field use. Now the last HF radio I have here is the radio I grab when I want to use a CW only field radio, and that is the CFT1. We've talked about this radio a lot on the channel. I've talked about why I love this radio. It's not the smallest, it's not the lightest, but it does everything so well that I need it to do that it's hard to beat. The audio is fantastic. The receiver is fantastic. The menu structure is perfect. You know, it does all the things I need it to do and nothing that I don't. The menu structure is super simple. It's got those 4 menus, or memory playbacks right on the front. I can operate it from in the menu. So if I want to change key speed, like on a mountain topper, I need to go into the menu and I lose receive, and then I need to change key speed and then go back out of the menu again. On this thing, I can leave it on key speed and just change the key speed in real time and operate from in the menu. I can adjust side tone on it. All of those things are super critical for me. Those are things that I find important in a field radio. It's got the right set of bands, right? It's 5 bands, 40, 30, 20, 17, 15. You know, it does all of those things that I need it to do. Great audio, great receiver, the filtering is good, the menu structure is fantastic, it's super simple to operate. So for all of those reasons, I really love this radio. There are some people that don't like this radio. They think it's a little overpriced, or they might not like the 3D printed parts. I have no issue with those things. You could also go with like a QMX, and a QMX is going to be more versatile, right? It's it'll do digital, it'll do single sideband. But for a CW only rig, this is a better radio for me. It's a better receiver, better filtering, better audio. The menu structure is simpler. You know, all of those things for me personally set the CFT1 apart from those other small QRP field radios. So those are the HF radios that I grab the most, or I use the most, right? The FTDX10, my shack rig, and sometimes field use. The FTX1, both in field and Optima form. The KX2 and the CFT1. Now, real quick, let me talk about a couple of HTs, because I normally carry an HT with me when I'm out in the field also. Now, if I have the FTX1, I don't necessarily need one, but I normally have one strapped to my pack anyway. So we'll start with my most used GMRS radio. So these are what I use when I'm out with my family, and that is the Woshin KGUV9G. This one is from Better Safe Radio. I've had this for a few years. This is a great radio. The screen is a little hard to read in the sun, and it does have a parasitic draw, which is a known issue with these. But it's not like it draws the battery down overnight. If you leave it for a month or two without charging, it'll be half dead. But you know, you take it off the charger and run it for several days with no issue. Audio's good. You know, it's a super het receiver. It's fairly easy to operate. It receives a ton of stuff. It's programmed with a ton of stuff already. You know, it'll do FM broadcast radio. It will do NOAA weather radio. It'll receive all sorts of different stuff. And it's a nice radio. It feels good in the hand. I like radios that have channel knobs, which this one does. All right, I'm a fan of that. So for me, this radio is a fantastic radio. Now, I do have the ham version of this too, the KGUV9PX Plus. I just got that recently from Better Safe Radio. I've been kind of putting that through its paces. I will do a review on that radio soon, but I haven't had it long enough to form a concrete opinion. I will say that it does all the things I like about this and fixes some of the issues, like the parasitic draw. The screen is much easier to read in the sun. So there are things that radio has fixed from this radio. The batteries are interchangeable, so I can use the same battery on both radios. But that radio, like I said, I will do a review on that radio once I've used it a little bit more. But for me, for GMRS radios, this one saw the most use this year. Now I've got two ham HTs, and they're probably not the ones you think I'm going to bring out. The first one is the Yaesu FT65. Right, this radio, this one's got the big battery on it. I have small batteries for it too, but this radio sees a ton of use. I like the ergonomics. I think it feels good in my hand. It's easy to operate. It's got good audio. It's got, NOAA weather radio, FM broadcast radio, all of those things. It's got a light on it, which is actually fairly usable. And it sort of shines out the front, so you can hold the radio like this. But for me, it's just a simple, easy to use radio that just does everything you need to do, and it doesn't break the bank, right? They're like 120 bucks, right? This is not a big dollar radio. But the battery life is ridiculous on these things. The audio is great. The receiver is decent. The filtering on this, the adjacent signal rejection stuff is better on this than it's going to be on the most of the Chinese radios. Even though it does have the same chip in it as a Baofeng, believe it or not, the front end is much better on this radio, miles better. So this thing sees an absolute ton of use. Now I have two of these. I also have two FT4XRs. I use those a lot too, but the screen is better on this. The battery life's better on this because it's got a bigger battery. So this tends to see more use. Now the last radio I have here is one that might surprise you because it's an antique, but it is very hard to beat an FT60. This is an old one. This is, I think, from, sorry, I didn't mean to bump the camera. This one's from, I think, 2010. So this one will still charge from the charge port on the side. The newer ones won't. You can power them from the charge port, but they won't charge from the charge port on the side. This one is old enough that it will. Battery life is atrocious. It's heavy as a brick. It's only got one, you can only listen on one frequency at a time. It won't do FM broadcast. It will do NOAA weather radio. Right, but it doesn't do a lot of the things. However, the receiver in this radio is the best HT receiver I've ever used, full stop, end of story, bar none. So if I'm going out to do, let's say, a SOTA activation, and I'm going to be running 2 meters, and I'm bringing, and then this is going to be my 2 meter radio or my 70 centimeter radio, this thing has ears on it that none of the other radios I own do. So it's not super water resistant. The battery life is garbage. It's super heavy. Like I said, the screen on it's not amazing. I mean, it's not bad, but it's not incredible. Single receiver, no FM broadcast radio. But dude, at the end of the day, you want the radio to be a radio, and this thing has ears that none of the other HTs I own do. So for that, and it's a couple other things that I really love about this. We have a channel knob, and we have a squelch knob, not buttons, right? So if I'm trying to pull somebody out of the noise, I can turn that squelch all the way open real quick, or I can just close the squelch till it just stops making noise, and then super weak signals will come through. For doing things like SOTA, that's a huge plus. So between the receiver quality on this thing and the squelch knob, this is my favorite SOTA HT for that reason, because it's got fantastic ears and it's got a squelch knob. So those are the radios that saw the most use this year. Some of those should be no-brainers, like they should be obvious. Some of them, like maybe this guy, you might not have seen that one coming. But I'm kind of to the point where I've used so many radios that I know what I like and I know what I don't like. And I know what compromises I'm willing to make and what compromises I'm not willing to make. And so, once you get that kind of experience, you can kind of thin the herd a little bit. I have so many radios right now. I don't use probably 60% of them. In fact, I may start selling some of the radios I don't use that often, because I've kind of decided what it is that I like and for how I operate. Okay, so hopefully that was just give you a little bit of information about why I choose the radios I choose, why I gravitate towards grabbing certain radios more often than others. But yeah, those are the radios that saw the most use this year out in the field. So if you've got any questions or comments, go ahead and drop them in the comment section below. I really do appreciate you watching. And as always, until next time, 73.